make a mark often do so because they are gifted, work hard, and have the passion to follow their dreams. That is the traditional, age-old view of success. But behavioral science, the marriage between science and psychology, proves that exceptional people are actually exceptional because of certain choices they make. They simply choose to win and make the best of every situation that is thrown at them. According to corporate trainer Tarunjit, who has through his firm Manford worked with many companies, the first step in this choice, the choice to win, comes from a deep sense of self-awareness. You need to know who you are.
It is understanding yourself. It is understanding of your cognitive self and your emotional self. And yes, at some level even
Cognitive being the rational self.
the rational self. Logically, I know I don't work well under tight deadlines. So a self-aware person would take that level of awareness and take it further and say, I don't work well under deadlines, so let me just plan well. They would proact to do that. Another self-aware person would say, I am not in tune with what the new strategy is. Can I just state my difference so that I am being integral to what's being expected of me? The second degree of self-awareness is what really drives me. What are my values? What are my beliefs? And as a consequence, how do I act? Being clear of what you stand for becomes critical. Like somebody said very interestingly, if you don't know what you stand for, you don't know what to fight for and what to let go. If you don't stand for anything, you will fall for anything. Right? So getting that clarity at both levels, at a behavioral level, at an attitude level, at a value and belief level, is critical.
Okay. So if I was to understand myself, how far back do I need to go?
Well, they say a lot of the first formative years are critical, and nobody can take that away. When we look at our deterministic way of being, as we said earlier, our genes, our initial first 5 years, and our current environment all really play a role. And the effect of the first 5 years, Freud really said it. He said the initial environment is so critical. In fact, he almost had the arrogance to say that, give me a child, tell me what you'd want to make of this child, and I'll create an environment where in the first 5 years you'll produce that. Now, while there was merit to that, there was also a man called Carl Jung who said you could have 2 kids growing up in the same environment but producing 2 different human beings later on in life. So there's something that the environment shapes and there's something that's innate or intrinsic.
But first 5 years, Tarun, I mean, one doesn't even remember till the first 4 years. So, I mean, you don't even have a memory pool to dip into. So,
Right.
in what sense can you gauge, when you train people, how far back can you go, and what are the steps that you can take there?
When we train, now there are techniques that really go into your absolute early years. What we really look at is enabling people to go back as far as they can to really understand what patterns gave them success, what patterns gave them failure, and therefore understand what drives them and what inhibits them. So let's look at a simple thing in the Indian context, right? We learn to associate respect for elder, we learn the value of respect for elders early on in life. Now, how that plays out is respect often takes the form when with an elder and when there is a difference of opinion, what would you do? Would you really contest, or would you out of respect just reserve judgment? Now, that is the formation that takes place, whereas in an organization you may have a CEO and you may want to disagree. So, is there a technique for doing that? So, can we re-examine what happened? Look at our relationship with a simple thing like, I remember when we grew up, we were told taking a loan is a bad thing, it means you are living beyond your means. The context today has shifted. Judicious use of loan money is called leverage, and it's almost desirable. So, the first 5 years produced a value system in me which was relevant in that context. Can we see when the context shifts what's relevant?
And that's a debate that has raged on for centuries. Is it nature or nurture that most influences the course of human life? Does the external environment around an individual critically influence his or her decisions? Researchers around the world have found how early childhood experiences, for instance, shape basic brain structures and its functions. But is that all?
Like they said, it's genetic, it's in the first 5 years, and also your current environment shapes it, but the influence of the first few years is extremely powerful. The way we deal with differences, the way our relationship with failure, our relationship with risk, all these get formed fairly early. Our relationship with whether you're dependent on others or whether you're independent, all these are formations that happen pretty early in life.
What is the more obvious manifestation of the lack of understanding of self-awareness in a workplace, you think, when you train people? What is the kind of questions that you come up with?
A lack of self-awareness in a manager would show itself up in a couple of ways. People not being aware of what is the impact they have on others. People thinking of themselves in a certain way, and when they get feedback, formally or informally from the system, they're being dissonance, and they're saying, hang on, I never thought I was like that. And those are signs of a lack of self-awareness. Self-aware people usually have a very grounded sense of who they are not. They are able to be self-critical without really depreciating yourself. They're able to do that. And those are certain signs that you could look out for. How effectively, one of the tools we really use to build on our awareness is we use feedback well. Look at the way our life was designed. Our life is designed for feedback. If there was no feedback, I wouldn't know when to stop breathing in. I'd keep breathing in. I wouldn't know when to stop eating. I wouldn't know when to rest. And for the first few years of our life, we got feedback every 3 months in a report card. But somewhere when we get into an organization, that feedback gets reserved for that performance appraisal discussion, and very often we find in our clients the performance appraisal discussion throwing surprises for both the person being appraised and the person who's appraising. Whereas if both were self-aware, if both had engaged in this, these surprises would be avoided.
So when you actually talk about self-awareness, one is understanding your personality type, understanding that maybe I don't work well in deadlines, etc. But does it also determine how ambitious you are, what your goals are, what you need to do, what your list of to-dos is to make you feel happy?
Yes, it does. So what are your drivers? And getting clarity on your drivers is critical. David McClelland's study of achievement motivation is foundational to this. And he found that early on we form a set of needs, and these are ingrained needs, and he classified them into 3 broad categories. A need for achievement, which very simply put means achieving for the sake of achieving. You know, George Mallory, who's rumored to have climbed Everest before Hillary, was asked once, why do you want to climb Everest? He said, because it's there. Now, achievement doesn't need logic. So, need for achievement people are people who are just driven by the sheer need to achieve. The second need that McClelland came up with was the need for power or influence, the need to influence others, the need to have control and impact on others. And the last one was the need for affiliation, the need to feel wanted, the need to have relationships with others. And he said all these 3 needs, one of them takes predominance over the other, and depending on what your needs are, your drivers are like that. Look at all these so-called rags to riches stories. A lot of their basic needs weren't fulfilled, but they still had that drive to achieve for the sake of achievement. So basis those needs, if we have an awareness of what our needs are, we have an awareness of what direction we can take.
That is what Tarun has found while conducting numerous sessions with many organizations, and the learning is that we don't do anything without a reason. Psychologists have even said that we are what we think about. Having a truly successful life depends on having a really clear intention. And if we are committed to that intention, we'll find the means to make it happen. On the other side, we find out how you determine what your goals are.